Welcome back to our special programming for the Canada Day weekend. Fairmont Hotels have held a special place in the history of Canada, dating way back to even before Confederation. Many of them started out as railway hotels owned by Canadian Pacific and Canadian National Rail. They were designed to serve the passengers of Canada's then expanding rail network. In 2016, the hotel chain was sold to a new owner, France-based AccorHotels, and leading the integration as well as global operations for all of AccorHotels' luxury brands is Chris Cahill. He sat down with me to discuss the value of the Fairmont brand and how to preserve it under the new ownership.
I think the great opportunity, advantage, that we have is the fact that because the company, the hotel, a lot of the hotels are almost as old as the country. Our first hotel, Fairmont Banff Springs, was 1888, and we have such iconic properties that we're privileged to be the custodians of. In the Rockies, in Quebec City with the Frontenac, the Fairmont Empress, they have been, for decades, they have been the picture of what Canadian tourism is. And so we take our responsibility very seriously in terms of both our efforts to look after those guests, but also to market to the international marketplace to have them visit Canada. So we're inextricably linked.
And with some of your properties being quite old, well over a century old, how important is it to keep the look fresh, to keep it from looking dated?
Absolutely critical. I think people, and we work very hard at maintaining this if you will, restoration as opposed to renovation. We're just going through a program at the Fairmont Empress. Matter of fact, I'm going there this afternoon to look at it. And that's been a painstaking approach by the owner of that property with our team to ensure that we maintain the integrity of what makes the Fairmont Empress the Empress. At the same time, making it current and I wouldn't call it contemporary, but more relevant to today's consumer in terms of their needs. And the same thing at the Fairmont Chateau Frontenac. We went through a massive restoration over the last 2 or 3 years. It's now complete. We're going through the same thing at the Fairmont Royal York. So we start from the perspective that these properties are, it's important to maintain their integrity and then work to ensure that they're also relevant to the guest experience of today.
How are you navigating disruption to the hotel industry right now? I'm reluctant to use the term Airbnb, but I'm going to because I know that it's something that has posed a challenge. What are plans to make sure that it doesn't take a sizable part of your business in the future?
I think the reality is you have customer needs evolving all the time, and this is just another element of it. And I think hotels adapt to those needs. I think you'll see more extended stay type product in the hotel business that is going to match those needs. A lot of what the desire around those residences, the home usage, if you will, has been because people are looking to really integrate themselves into a destination and gain a stronger feeling that they've actually been part of where they have visited. So I think that just becomes an obligation for the hotel industry to try to provide some of what they're looking for. And I think we will continue to evolve and adjust to those needs. But at this point in time, the market is a very dynamic one. But the size and scale of it differs depending on what part of the world you're in. I think the only issue for the hotel industry generally is that a lot of the issues from a local, state, regulatory requirement that are imposed on hotels need to be imposed on them as well. Just has to be an even playing field.
I know that you helped oversee Fairmont's integration into Accor. How has integration been so far?
We came through 2016, and they've been through a year of a lot of disruption and concern. The hotels improved their employee engagement survey results, so the employees at the property level felt more committed. Their service levels were up. Their competitive positioning was good. So they've actually done a marvelous job in a time when it was very trying to actually keep focused on the primary objective of our business, which is to look after our guests.
And how key is that consolidation to helping compete with the Airbnbs of the world and with the general tech disruption that's happening right now?
Well, I think what you have happening in the hotel space in particular is that the demand by consumers, and I would say specifically in the upper upscale luxury tier, but the demand for ever increasing amounts of personalization and different experiences is requiring a lot more investment in technology generally. And with that, obviously scale matters, and therefore you have to have enough properties to be able to, if you will, allocate cost across the organization. So consolidation, I think, is somewhat inevitable. As well, you have a global traveler today, and increasingly global travelers, and they're looking for product and opportunities in various and new destinations. And as such, you have to be in a position to satisfy their needs, or you run the risk of losing some of their loyalty.
So since the merger, how would you say the culture of Fairmont, as in particular, has changed? Because you were there in the 90s, you left and came back. Does it look like the same company to you?
Yes. I mean, the cultural values of Fairmont are, in my, I guess, biased view, very unique. It's built on a set of values of respect, integrity, teamwork, and empowerment. And that shows up in the way people perceive the service. That's not something that changes very much when you have change of ownership. If you look at the core of that company was Canadian Pacific Hotels, which is really the company that goes back to 1888. We acquired Fairmont, and we acquired Princess, and we merged them together, and we converted the company name to Fairmont. And those values stayed intact, and it's built on a rigorous approach to recruitment. It's built on a rigorous approach to leadership and leadership development, and holding the leaders accountable for the values of the company. So the change of ownership doesn't usually change that, and it's so integral to the brand. It is not something that you can easily alter just by a change in ownership of the company, and not likely to change anytime soon.
How are you leveraging the brand association with Canada as we prepare, as we celebrate Canada 150? What's the messaging around that been like?
The tourism industry has become so competitive, and every country in the world has been growing their tourism base because it's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. It's great for job creation, so countries love it, and they're quick to invest in tourism. And so because of that competition, having something like the 150 provides an opportunity to market something different and create a sense of urgency that this is the year you have to visit Canada. And so I think from that perspective, we're certainly leveraging that, I think, very effectively, and I think it's good for the country. There's very few industries, and probably this is not scientific, but tourism globally has been growing at over 4% for 30 years, compound growth rate of 4%, and predicted to grow the same for the next 30 years. And as the world shrinks from technology, I think you'll continue to see people going further and further afield. And travel and tourism has become a right. It's no longer a discretionary spend. People, they have to have shelter, they have to have food, but they are going to travel. And how they travel, how much they spend, where they go may differ, and it may differ in down cycles and up cycles. But as we've seen through the recent crash in 07, 08, or 08, 09, people continue to travel. They just travel differently.
Do you see more consolidation on the horizon in the luxury hotel space?
I think for a lot of what I would call short chains that are smaller in terms of number of distribution, I think they're going to find it increasingly more difficult to compete. I think technology will make it difficult in terms of the investment they require, and not having enough properties to allocate the cost against, I think is going to be continue to be a challenge. And I think that they'll either band together, or they'll be probably have to consider other strategic alternatives in order to be successful and continue to compete.
Still ahead, we get a private tour of a star chef's kitchen with David Hawksworth, and all aboard discovering the charms of traveling by train with luxury operator Rocky Mountaineer. All coming up in a few minutes.